Hi, welcome to the Celiac and the Frog. I am the Frog. In this episode, we want to talk about my 50-pound weight loss, some of the challenges, some of the successes over the past 2.5 years, and how we're keeping the weight off. And research shows that the failure rate for diets is pretty high. I realized very early on that I was going to have a significant change in my lifestyle, a significant change in the way that I approached dieting, that I approached food, and break some of the habits, some of the bad habits that I had developed over many, many years. Even though I've been dealing with this for 2.5 years, there's still a lot of ups and downs. There's a learning process that never, ever stops. I'm enjoying that learning process. I've become sort of a student of the process, a student of better health, better nutrition, that kind of thing. But there's a lot more to it than just dieting. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm quite honestly, I'm just a guy with some experience with weight loss and with some healthy eating and some good habits. And I want to share that with you. So we're going to look at several different topics, kind of at a high level. But I want to share a kind of a broad spectrum of things that have been impressed on me through this process. And again, I said earlier about a complete lifestyle change. For a lot of people, that's very, very difficult. But I learned early on in this process that a slow implementation of some of the changes was the best thing for me. Trying to make a wholesale change overnight, I knew that wasn't going to work. I knew that that would be a failure point for me. So I concentrated on learning the pieces, learning some of the things that were going to help me get through the process easier, and implementing those one step at a time so I didn't overwhelm myself. A good example is one of the first things that I did was to cut out bread. And if you've done the research, and you need to do your own research in all of this, because again, I told you I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, but one of the things that I did early on was cutting out bread. For someone my age, I'm over 50, bread is horrible for us. Once it gets into your system, it basically turns to sugar. It does a lot of different things to our bodies that we really don't want it to do. So I cut bread early on. Another thing that would be a good example would be to cut out sodas that contain sugar, sweet tea. I live in the South. You can probably tell by my accent. We love our sweet tea, but it's sweet tea. It's full of sugar. So reducing that sugar was a big thing for me. It was a big help for me. But again, I implemented some of those things one step at a time. It takes our bodies and our brains a little bit of time to develop new habits. We don't break bad habits overnight. So we have to give ourselves, again, our mind and our body, we have to give ourselves time to make those changes gradually. Another big thing for me was a support system. I'm very fortunate that my wife is my support system, but not everyone has a good support system, and that's understandable. My recommendations would be, if you don't have someone close to you in your family that's able to support you in this endeavor, then friends, co-workers, there's a lot of other things that we can do too. Social media, Facebook groups, even consulting your doctor, which I would recommend consulting your doctor anyway, before going on a major diet type of program. But also to consult your doctor for some of those support outlets that may be around in your area. My email address is going to be in the description. I'm happy for you to reach out to me. I'll do my best to reply and to support you as best I can here from the Celiac and the Frog. A major piece of my success for weight loss has been a gluten-free diet. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody needs to be gluten-free. I'm not saying that at all, but it has been really, really good for me. My wife, I mentioned her a few minutes ago, she has celiac disease. You'll hear me refer to her as the celiac of the Celiac and the Frog. I'll also refer to her as the princess. But she has celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disease that's triggered by gluten exposure. And folks that have celiac disease, if you're one of those folks, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Basically, as an autoimmune response, the body tries to get rid of that gluten in any way that it can. So it's a very intense gastrointestinal type of reaction. It makes those people very, very sick. So we are gluten-free, not by any sort of fad, and not to say that people who are gluten-free do it because it's a fad or it's some sort of, you know, neat social experiment. We're gluten-free by necessity. We have to be for her safety. We have to be to keep her from not being sick. It's literally a matter of life and death for severe celiacs. So that's kind of our angle for the gluten-free piece. Now, gluten is a protein that's found primarily in wheat, barley, and rye. It's used as a filler in a lot of things. It's used in a lot of processed foods. It's used across the board in our food supply. So again, we have to be very, very careful. Some examples are bread, pasta, baked goods, that kind of thing, or where it's the most prevalent. But gluten is very, very widely used across the board in our food supply. Some of the benefits for being gluten-free for me have been increased energy. It reduces inflammation. It reduces bloating. There's a lot of things, and it's helped me for weight loss. I have no doubt about that. Now, I will say this, a lot of gluten-free foods are very, very high in sugar and very, very high in some other things that our bodies don't want either. So being gluten-free only doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most healthy. So there are some things that I struggle with to find the right foods for me, because sugar and carbs and things like that are also things that I try to limit as well. Which brings me to the next thing, is sugar. I try to have as low sugar diet as possible. That is the first thing that I look at on a label when I pick up a label in the grocery store or whatever. That's the first thing that I'm looking at is sugar. Again, I told you I'm over 50, so I have to watch my sugar. I have a family history, so I've got to really be careful with that anyway. So not only do I look for gluten-free foods, but as far as the label is concerned, after I confirm gluten-free, sugar's the first thing I look for. I even did a 10-day sugar detox diet. Dr. Mark Hyman put out a book. He's got a program. I really like it. And actually, we're doing a video. It will be released the same day that this video is released on that 10-day detox diet, sugar detox diet. We're doing it as a review. I'm sharing some of the things that I really liked about that. It was a big success. Please look at that video as well. Sugar has a pretty detrimental effect on our bodies. Again, the older we get, the worse that, and the more compounded that effect can be. Again, for me, it's been a big deal, and it's been a huge help to cut sugar, limit sugar. It's been a huge help for my weight loss. Some of the other things that I look at is saturated fats. I have a cholesterol history. My cholesterol's been creeping up over the last few years, and previous to my weight loss. It's leveled out a little bit with the weight loss, but I've gotten a little more intense with looking at saturated fat, which is primarily where our cholesterol issues come from. So I'm anxious to see what that looks like. I'm just a month or so out from pulling those numbers again through lab work. So I'm anxious to see if that's going to work for me. The next thing I want to talk about is craving control. And again, that kind of goes hand in hand. So this is a good segue because it goes hand in hand with our sugar issues. So by limiting sugar, I've been able to limit my cravings by a big margin. But cravings are tough. I still have those cravings. Here, two and a half years later, I still deal with cravings. But I'm able to manage those cravings. It's important for us to find good snack foods so that when we do have those cravings, we can manage the cravings, not eliminate, or we're never going to do that. It's almost impossible to ignore the craving. So I try to manage my cravings by healthy snacks, good snacks, snacks that will sustain me, but that won't spike my sugar. The next thing I want to talk about is meal prepping. This has been extremely helpful for me because I can use that to help me with portion control. I can use that for time management. So there's a lot of benefits for meal prepping. But I will say this, meal prepping is not easy. What we usually do on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, we'll meal prep for the entire week. And that gets, a couple of hours worth of cooking, and sometimes not even that long, but a little while of cooking that we can eliminate that cooking throughout the week. That helps a lot, helps with stress. We don't have to worry about, what we're going to do for breakfast and lunch. Sometimes we don't do dinners always, but we almost always do breakfast and lunch for meal prepping through the week. And it's a big help. Again, this is not something that I would recommend charging headlong into at the beginning of the diet. This is something that you want to work into, especially if you're not used to cooking. I think about folks that are my age. We're used to something quick, and it's probably never really good for us. So this is something that you got to ease into so that you don't hit a wall. You don't get defeated by one of the pieces and parts of this. A really, really big piece of the dieting process for me has been hydration. And you think, well, that's kind of weird, because what does hydration have to do with food? Well, it has a lot to do with the whole overall process. Our bodies need to be hydrated, and our bodies need to be hydrated adequately. This is also something that I would highly recommend easing into. We don't want to go from drinking very little water a day to drinking a gallon of water a day. And I'm using a gallon because I drink nearly a gallon of water a day. Always over 3/4 of a gallon. And most days I approach a gallon, and sometimes I even exceed a gallon. Something that I also use are hydration tablets. They do a couple of things. One, they give my body the ability to better absorb and to use that hydration, but also it helps with the taste. A lot of us can't drink straight water, and we can't drink it in that type of quantity without a little something to make it taste better. And I've got an example of the hydration tablets that I use here on the screen, and I'm not an affiliate with that company. I don't make any money off of them, so I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is just what I use. You can do your research, but most research shows that women need about 2.8 liters of water per day as a recommended amount of water, and men need about 3.8 liters of water per day, which is right at a gallon. Again, there's a lot of different numbers out there. Some are not quite as high, but it's important for you to do your research. Understandably, that is a lot of water, and again, easing into that and incrementally increasing your water intake over time is what I would recommend. That worked well for me. You may be thinking, I'll never get out of the bathroom. I can't do that. I'm on the road a lot. I can't get up from my desk at work that much. Whatever your situation may be, there's probably a lot of reasons. So incrementally throughout the day, taking on that water instead of all at once, in the middle of the day or that kind of thing. I start drinking water when I get out of the bed, and I finish right before I go to bed. And I incrementally take that water on throughout the day. That helps me with, again, like I said, with that time management, not having to stop every 3 exits on the interstate to go to the bathroom, not having to interrupt meetings, that kind of thing. So I incrementally throughout the day take on. And so we're not taking on nearly as much at one time as it would sound. So I carry this bottle with me just about everywhere I go. It's a 1.2 liter Hydro Flask. Again, I'm not trying to sell you Hydro Flask. I'm a fan of theirs. I'm not an affiliate. Just kind of give you an example. I usually drink 3 of those per day. Again, that's approaching a gallon. So with some other coffee in the morning and maybe a soft drink that's definitely sugar-free. And I've got some recommendations on that we'll talk about in other videos. But with some other supplemented fluids throughout the day, I'm well over a gallon at the end of the day. So next, vitamins and supplements. It's taken me a while to really refine the supplements and the vitamins that I take. Initially, I started on, and most doctors would recommend a multivitamin. Again, over 50. There are specific designed vitamins and supplements for different age ranges. I take a multivitamin that's designed for over 50. I also take CoQ10 with fish oil, which promotes a lot of things, but specifically heart health. So that's one that I've been enjoying. Another thing that, again, over 50, we start to lose testosterone. You've seen the commercials. You've seen all the advertisements. It's true. We lose testosterone. I do take a testosterone booster. I've really liked that. It definitely has worked for me. Again, I'm showing you some of this on the screen. I'm not an affiliate with any of these folks. This is just some of the stuff that's ended up working for me. In addition to that, a B complex helps me tremendously with energy. I don't get that mid-afternoon crash, that mid-afternoon slump for energy. I really have been enjoying the B complex. I have to take iron, which is unusual for most men. We typically get our iron and we keep our iron, but for some reason I don't. So I have to supplement iron. That's been working for me. I've been able to correct some weakness and some orthostatic changes where I stand up and get a little bit lightheaded. The iron has helped me with that. Again, that's me. You talk to your doctor, you consult your doctor on what works best for you, but that's been working for me. And then the last thing that I'll mention is magnesium. I do magnesium several times during the week. I don't take it every day. Typically, though, I use magnesium. It helps me for regularity. So if that's an issue for you, maybe something to talk to your doctor for you as well. Then the last thing I want to talk about is exercise. And I think any health professional would recommend exercise. I mean, most of us, when we go to the doctor, we get the same old, you need to take off a few pounds, you need to walk instead of ride, that kind of thing. So I definitely would recommend exercise. I do more walking than I do anything. I'm somewhere in the 8,000 to 10,000 step range per day, which is anywhere from 4 to 5 miles. And again, that's average. Some days I may only do a mile, and then other days I may do 6 or 7 miles. But I average somewhere in that 4 to 5 mile range. That's what feels good to me. That's what my body can do and recuperate from. I also recently, within the last two to 3 months, have started with a very, very light weight training regimen. That's working well for me. I'm enjoying that. Again, just a couple of days a week, adding that to my walking has been working pretty well for me. But again, that's something that you need to discuss with your health professional and to see what works for you and what helps supplement your weight loss the best. And you're tuned into YouTube. There's a ton of information out there on YouTube and a lot of really good folks out there. You have to find them. You have to do your research. But there's a lot of good folks out there that have a lot of at-home type workout stuff, things that are, body weight only. That's what I started with. There's a guy named Funk Roberts, and I'll put a link down in the description. I really like Funk. He's an over 50 male who does a lot of body weight only type stuff, things that you can do at home in your living room, things that you can do in your hotel room if you're traveling, things that you could even do in your office if that's your deal. There's just a lot of things, a lot of flexibility that comes with that. I don't necessarily think that anyone needs to join a gym. I got nothing against gyms. But that's just not something that I've chosen to do. The walking and the lightweight training and some of the body weight only stuff is really working well for me. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can find. But the thing is, you need to be doing something. Our bodies need exercise. You don't have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to be Mr. or Mrs. Fitness. But we need to be doing something. And the benefits for the weight loss that moderate exercise brings has helped me a lot. And again, I would highly recommend some sort of exercise regimen. Thank you for being with us. If you like the video, hit the little thumbs up there. Be sure and subscribe to the channel. You can even ring the little bell there and get notified when we put up other content. Again, there's another video that we're releasing the same day as this one for the sugar detox diet review. That one's going to be a neat one. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.